Hello, welcome to Kubernetes Deployment Series, Part 15. In this series, we are going to learn how to use GitHub tools to deploy microservice applications into Kubernetes cluster. So there are two types of GitHub tools. One is Argo CD and the other one is Flux. So in this series, we are going to discuss about Argo CD, how we can use Argo CD for continuous deployment. In our previous labs, we have already discussed the other tools and technologies that we can use for deploying microservices into Kubernetes cluster. We have already discussed about kubectl tool and Helm Chart Kustomize and Helm Chart and Kustomize together to deploy the applications into the cluster. Also, we have used it manually through the command line, how we can use the command and using these different tools, we can deploy into AKS cluster, any cluster. And also we have automated using Azure pipeline. That automation we can do with other automation tools like GitHub Actions or Jenkins or Circle CI, any other tools we can use for automating. We have already discussed the advantages what we'll get of using these tools. So kubectl basically it is used. I mean it is it is a simple tool whenever we want to do some kind of POC or for demonstration purpose. We can use kubectl. Helm, whenever there is we need, if you want to reuse the code, I mean we want to package that deployment and share it. In that scenario, we can use Helm. And also, if there are some available Helm charts that we can reuse in our deployment. Kustomize, basically, we can use whenever we want to deploy the applications into multiple environments. In Helm, also we can use it in multiple environments, but there we can use different values.yaml file for each of the environments. And there is also, we can also take the advantage of using both Helm and Kustomize together. So this is whenever we are deploying into big enterprise level applications. In that scenario, we can use Helm and Kustomize together. So this you have already discussed in our previous labs. If you see the differences, that what you have we have already discussed, it is you can consider that is traditional deployment strategies. So this basically a push approach where from the command line or from the pipeline we want to push those um, artifacts, the manifests or the images to the cluster. But GitHubs, whether it's block, the Argo CD. So in this is basically work as a pull approach. So the main difference you can see here is in case of the traditional one, it requires the pipeline or the runner or the command line. We have to authenticate to the cluster. But in case of Argo CD, the Argo CD itself run in the cluster. So there is no extra authentication required to the cluster. In case of the traditional deployment, in suppose we have already deployed our applications into the cluster. So there we can change manually also. We can change the replicas or any configuration. So there maybe happens the state or maybe drift, and I mean we cannot keep track of that. But in case of Argo CD, we use the Git itself as the source of truth. So it will keep all the changes, any drift, if any manual change we do in our cluster or the deployment, then it automatically track that and revert back automatically and fix it. And in case of this traditional deployment, we can use rollback that we can do using the running the previous pipeline to roll back to the previous deployment, or we can use manually applying the manifest, or if you are using Helm chart, then we can just roll back to the previous revision. So this way we can roll back to our previous deployment. But in case of Argo CD, because we are keeping all the deployment the artifacts, everything in the Git repository. So in this case, simply revert back the Git commit to the previous state. Will uh, it will deploy the previous state to the cluster. So it is easy to do or rollback in this case. Also, changing to deploying into multiple environment also easy in this case, as we can just change our Git repository to different environment. It will just to track, or we have to specify the respective branches of the environment to deploy into two different environments. Git and the Argo CD also provides a dashboard or the UI where we can see all the deployment and its status, and how the pods are healthy. Those things we can track easily in Argo CD. Okay, so there is some uh, pros and cons in both cases, both traditional deployment and the GitOps deployment. We'll discuss all these things step by step in our future labs. Okay, so in this lab, basically, I'll use Minikube to demonstrate how we can use the Argo CD, and in future lab, we will use um, Azure AKS cluster to automate it everything. So in this case, I'm just taking Minikube cluster to demo it to simply save the cost. So let's go to the VS Code. So here, in whenever you are using GitOps, basically, so we usually maintain two different branches of our repository. One is for development, the other one is for deployment. So in deployment repository, we usually store our the the configuration files, the manifest files, whether it is the raw YAML files, or it is Helm Chart, or it is our customized one, or both Helm Chart or Kustomize. Okay, so that we can store in our deployment repository to track our deployment, how it is deployed into the cluster. And the development environment, basically, you can see here in the development environment, we can keep our applications, and here we can create our Docker file to Dockerize the applications and push it into the respective um, container registry if we are doing manually. And in the, as I said, in the deployment repository, we can see we have we can keep our uh, artifacts or the manifest file. So I have already created two different repository in GitHub. So we'll follow these steps, how we can proceed to deploy into the GitHubs that I have already mentioned in these steps. We'll follow this. So in this case, I have created multiple folders. We can see here single manifest. Here, for all the services, I keep the manifest file together. We can see here order manifest, product manifest, and rabbit message queue and storefront. Both I have created the deployment and for service YAML files. This is where in one folder I just kept all the manifest files for all the services. Also, we can make it multi-manifest. Individually, we can also store, like for order we can segregate the deployment and service YAML files. For product also, here we can include. Similarly, I have done for Rabbit message queue, storefront, and um, uh, config as well. We can see here. Okay, this way we can also make it. Also, we can use the Helm chart. You can see we can create a single Helm chart where we can include all the manifest files here. And if we can use in multi-manifest also, we can see here we can create a separate chart for it individual services. Okay, so this I did just for to demo purpose, but we can follow any one of this structure depending upon our requirement. Similarly, we can also use customize manifest if you want to deploy it into multiple environments, and together also we can use customize and Helm and Kustomize together. Okay, so this way I have created multiple folders here to demo how we can keep our manifest files, and from whether we are using the raw or the basic manifest or Helm chart, or we are using Kustomize or both Helm Chart and Kustomize. Okay, so that way I have structured this directory. Okay, now next step we will follow how we can proceed to deploy into the Minikube cluster using Argo CD. So for that, let's start. Let me just start the Minikube. Okay, it will start. It will take some time. I'm using Docker Desktop. We can just log into Docker Desktop and start the Minikube to create the cluster. So after that step, what we have to do, the next step is we have to install the Argo CD. So as I said, in this case, the Argo CD itself as a part of the cluster. So we need to deploy into the cluster as a pod. So we can create a new namespace, and under the namespace, we are going to deploy the Argo CD. Argo CD. So if you are using any other cluster, for example, if you are using AKS, Azure Kubernetes cluster, so in the Azure Kubernetes cluster itself, we need to create a namespace, and there we have to deploy the Argo CD. Okay, so since here I'm using Minikube, in this case I have to create a new cluster for new namespace for the Argo CD, and there I have to deploy this Argo CD. So next step, we need to create a namespace. Then using that namespace, I have to install this. I'll use this manifest install.yaml that is available in this path, and I'll use this to deploy this Argo CD into this. I have mentioned, you can see here, the namespace is Argo CD. Okay, yeah, it is taking some time. Then we can see after that we can browse it, the Argo CD server. It exposes one interface that we can browse by port forwarding to this 443 server, Argo CD server. So we can port forward to this, and we can browse that server. Then we can log into that server using using the username as admin default, but we can change it later. And the password we can get using this command. So it will provide the password to log into the server. After logging to this, we can then connect in that interface. We are going to connect to our repository. That repository what we have created, you can see this repository we have to connect from the Argo CD server. So then after that, we have to create the application to deploy into the the Minikube cluster using the Argo CD. Okay, let's see whether it is yeah, still it is going on. Yeah, let's discuss it how we can do that. So okay, so this is one part that we have to create create a namespace, deploy the Argo CD in that namespace in the Minikube cluster. After that, we have to log into the Argo CD server. Then we have to connect to the repository where our manifest files are there. After that, we have to create applications, and we have to try to deploy our manifest file or the application into the Minikube cluster using Argo CD. So in this lab, I'm using the Docker images from my Docker hub. Okay, so in my previous lab, I have already discussed. Uh, I have used my Docker images from the Azure Container Registry. I used to push it into the Azure Container Registry, and from there I refer the Docker images. But in this case, I just push these Docker images into the Docker hub. You can see in my, if you go to Docker hub, you can see all this I have already pushed. Docker storefront, and you can see also pod product and order. So these are all already I have pushed. Okay, and you can use these commands what I have mentioned here. If you see, these are the command we can use. You have to log into the Docker by using Docker login. Then you have to do this Docker build, tag it, and then push. These commands are I have already mentioned. So I have already pushed. If you run this from here, right, you can do it by using, you can use Docker login, and you can log into the Docker. It is login success, and just run any of this. Since I have already built the Docker and already tagged, I can push, but still it is, since it is already pushed, it will show that it is already available. Okay, it is already exist. Okay, so So this step we need to do. I have, if you see in my deployment file, right? In this file, if you go any of this deployment, I have mentioned the Docker image. You can see the Docker image. I have mentioned this one. It will get it from my Docker hub. Okay. Yeah. So now this is done. Now let me quickly proceed with the other steps that we have to now create a namespace. We have done. Let me just create a namespace as Argo CD. Argo CD I have already created. The namespace is available. Then in order to install this, I can just run this one. I have to run this command to install the Argo CD in the Argo CD namespace. It will take a few minutes to complete this. Once that is done, then I have to expose it. The service of Argo CD, I have to expose with the port 8080 and 443. That is done. Okay. Once that is done, we can use, if you go to this and try to browse it, we can see the Argo CD interface. Yeah. So we can use login using user admin, and but we have to uh, create the password by, or we can get that password using this command. Okay. If you go and let's go to another get pass tool. So this is my password here. Okay. And now use this password, sign in. Okay, so we are able to log into the Argo CD interface now. Okay, now the next step, which we have to connect to the repository. So we can go to setting and go to repository here. I have already connected this. Let me disconnect it. Okay, and I'll show you how you can connect. You can come to this, check HTTPS, and by default check Git. Name is optional, and take the project as default. And repository here you can take is, this is our deployment repository where our manifest files are there. Okay, we can use this, and this is not required. Take everything, then connect. Yeah, so we are able to, you can see successfully we have logged in. Now we can create an application. Okay, so application, we want to, suppose we want to deploy this single manifest. We'll take the single manifest where all the services are there, right? So we can take the single manifest. I can take this name. Okay, let the application name is single manifest. Okay, project, I'll take default one. Let automatically it will sync. Okay, and this will automatically use our the GitHub repository. Okay, head and path. What we'll mention is, under this repository, the path we'll use is the single manifest. So it will pick from the single manifest folder. Okay, and destination is, we have the Minikube cluster. This is the cluster where this manifest it will take from the repository and try to deploy here in the cluster. And manifest, what we have to use, let's create a new namespace, or you can use also default. For example, we'll use a default one here. Okay, default manifest and default namespace will deploy this services. Okay, so that's done. Now create it. Okay, so it created. Now if you go to the namespaces here, we have the default one. Let deselect it. Now I just select this default one here, and if you see here, it is progressing. And here you can see it created all the service. You can see order service, product service, rabbit message queue service, storefront service. Okay, and these are all the deploy. Okay, and here it is creating the creating our pods. Okay, so this is replica sets. This is the pod, rabbit message queue pod, and this is the order service pod. This is product service pod and storefront pod. Okay, these are the pods it's created, and this is RabbitMessage pod. This is the replica sets for all the services, and these are the deployments and services. You can see, you can visualize everything here. Okay, so we can see all this running fast successfully. And if you go to the command line here, I can type make it okay. Now let me just use get the pod, and the pods are in default directory. Okay, if it is default, then no need to mention the namespace, but you can mention. So you can see here my pods are running now. Okay, still it is waiting for the order service is waiting for the rabbit message queue. Okay, so you can see everything is deployed. You can get the pod, you can also get the services and deployment. If you deploy get it like a get all minus deployed, you can see all deployments, replica sets, and this is stateful set for the RabbitMessage queue, pods, service name, everything, right? So you can see whatever we can see here, you are able to visualize this one. Okay, and now if I'll change, for example, I'll go to my development, and here I'll just change something in my any one of these application. Okay, so for example, storefront application, I'll create an image, push into my Docker hub. Okay, and mention here in my single manifest, I'll change the rabbit message storefront version, and check in this. Okay, push into the GitHub repository, then it will automatically sync and deploy it. Okay, that we'll see in our next lab. Okay, how we can update, create a new Docker image, push into the Docker hub, and we'll change that image in the manifest file, in the single manifest. So we'll check how this application what is running here. You can see sync application, right? So we will just synchronize it. If you want to do it manually, otherwise it the Argo CD itself automatically sync it and deploy the latest image into the cluster. So that we'll see in our next lab. So for now, this is all about Argo CD and how we can deploy it. If you are following, you can just follow the steps what I have mentioned in my GitHub stuff steps here, and you can create your own. Okay, so if you feel this is valuable for this, then subscribe it, and like it and share it to others. Thank you. Till then, bye bye.